Howdy, folks. Today we're talking content creation and catching up with a well-known face on this podcast right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. We've spent literally hundreds of hours interviewing some of the most renowned photographers of our time, giving you access to knowledge and expertise that's not available anywhere else. As always, I'm your host, Kirsten Nuts, and if you enjoy this content, consider lending your support on buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us create more exciting episodes for you. Your support really does make a difference. But without further ado, let's give it up for today's special guest, a familiar face on the show, the travel, wildlife, and Northern Lights expert and photo guide, Dave Williams. Dave, man, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm warm. Let's put it this way. Because I saw it's like snowing massively where you are.
Well, the sky is kind of pink and orange right now. We've got, at the time of recording, 5 more sunrises. And then we've got a month without the sun. Polar night will arrive. So, wow. I'm here at 68 degrees north up in the Arctic Circle in Lofoten. And it's nice having, funny things like this, because the other opposite end of the year, you get polar day. So the midnight sun comes out. And obviously, the more darkness we get now, the more opportunities we get for northern lights. So even though it's occasionally a bit cold, occasionally a bit blizzardy, I'll take it. It's fine.
I remember, obviously, when we were running the workshop at the back end of September, I noticed that, of course, the days were shorter than they were over here in the UK already. That was noticeable, and it was noticeably colder. But, we hadn't reached the point yet where it was snowing. I think it was like 5-6 degrees or something like that. And at night, it would hit freezing once in a while. But it wasn't necessarily, for September, it was cold, but it wasn't, it wasn't Arctic. But so you're saying you've got 5 days left of sunrises. How short or how long are the days right now?
2 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you get 2 hours of sunlight, but the sun is extremely low and it's in the south. And so if you have any clouds, which there quite often are in the south, you won't get the sun. You'll just get the light. And there's like a really long twilight. Blue hour just goes on for a long time. So from about 9 a.m. until about 3 p.m. is blue hour, with the golden hour in the middle with the sun. What happens when the sun doesn't arrive at all is you just skip that golden hour period and you get blue hour the whole day. And when the sun is civil twilight between 0-6 degrees below the horizon, you get like candy floss skies, cotton candy skies, where it's all pink and blue. It's really nice. It makes for some really good photos, but you just have to forget about the idea of light actually hitting anything. It's not going to.
Right. And then how long does that last? Like, when is the sun coming back?
6th of January. 8th of January. Early January it will come back. I think it's the 6th.
Okay, cool. Because we've got another workshop planned at the end of January, of course. And, hopefully we've got at least a few sunlight hours when it comes to that. That'd be good.
Yeah, so we're going to make the most of the sunlight hours and the blue hours. So in contrast to the last workshop, which was almost like an autumn or a fall kind of situation, this one's going to be a proper midwinter one. There's going to be snow on the ground. It's going to be cold, but it's going to be fun. The colors are incredible, and the contrast against the snow and against the sea is stunning. So I'm really looking forward to this next one.
Yeah, it's going to be truly Arctic, basically.
100%.
It's going to be hilarious fun. So it runs from the 25th of January to the 1st of February. There are still spaces available. And of course, if people are interested, they can either hop over to your website, which is idavewilliams.com/training. And of course, I will put the link on the screen right here if you're watching on YouTube. But if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you'll find all the links in the description, of course. So either hop over to Dave's website, idavewilliams.com/training, or you can now also find the same thing pretty much on my website, which is kirstennuts.com/workshops. So I call the page workshops rather than training. See what I did there?
Clever. Okay.
And again, all the links in the description.
I want to also point out the extremely generous offer we had from Adobe.
Yes. So here's the thing, and this is actually something I was going to mention next. Any participants for this workshop on the 25th of January, there's still a few places left, so make sure you get in there whilst there's still availability. But there's an amazing offer that we have from Adobe, which basically means that anybody signing up to this workshop will get a full year of free Adobe Cloud subscription, so Creative Cloud subscription, or Creative Suite, whatever you call it. What do you call it these days?
Creative Cloud.
Yeah, Creative Cloud, that's it.
Hang on, I'll do this bit. So anyone that signs up, thanks to the generosity of Russell Brown, who is the creative principal director of Adobe, he's recognized this workshop as being unique and extremely creative because of the fact that we've got Northern Lights and Vikings instead of just mountains. We've got some character coming as well. He's given everyone who signs up a full 1-year Creative Cloud plan, and it doesn't matter if you already have the all apps or if you already have the photography plan. It doesn't matter which one, you will get an extension of a year, and if you don't have one, you'll get the membership for a year.
And you get it also mentioned that's
worth a lot of money.
It's worth nearly $700 $700 is what the subscription would cost you. Yeah. So if you were to sign up for this workshop and you're already paying for an Adobe subscription, you're effectively saving yourself $700 a year. That's basically what's happening. So that's amazing. That's incredible. Plus there's some other discount codes. There's a day 5 discount code where you can save another 5%, which in my little head I can't really calculate how much that actually amounts to. But nevertheless, every little helps.
$200. Yeah. But I want to just point out the reason we've done that. So it turns out that if you already have workshop business, then you get a lot of repeat business, a lot of repeat customers through your word of mouth and referrals and things like that. But starting from scratch is difficult. And that's why we've added that extra 5% discount code, just to entice people in, because we've got, as I say, or as you said, we've got a few spots still available, and we want to fill that up. We want to give a lot of people a great time here in Lofoten so that we can continue to do so with more workshops in the future. So 5% off with day 5 at checkout.
Absolutely. So again, all the links are in the description of both the audio version of this podcast and, of course, the YouTube version. So make sure you check that out. It's an incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There's also there's a message of one of our past attendees, David Berkman, that I will put live in the next day or two. And I just say this, by the way, today is Friday, the 1st of December. And if you are listening to this today, then I apologize already that we're a day late, but there's a really good reason for that. Well, partly a technical reason, but also partly because I really want Dave to come on the show for this week. So, and also mainly because in my personal life, yesterday was a huge day that for my wife anyway, it was a huge day. And so I had to free that day up. And sometimes these things happen, sometimes these things happen and you can't really do anything about that. And so, we're a day late.
It's just be completely transparent here. It's not your fault or your wife's fault that you're late. It's because I couldn't do the earlier day. So it's my fault.
True. That's true. But I would have, ordinarily, that's fine. Ordinarily I would have just recorded something else. But that was just not possible yesterday, just mainly because, because my wife has some health issues and they just had to be taken care of. Yesterday was a huge day when it comes to that. And, and sometimes you just have to put family first, and that's just how it is. But anyway, so today's Friday. I will endeavor to get this edited and out at some point later on today. But if it is Saturday morning, I apologize. It's just what it is. Anyway, but we're back on track from next week. So as always, as per usual, you can expect Camera Shake podcast episodes to go live on a Thursday. That will be, we're back on track for next week. Nevertheless.
To be honest, Kate, you've done really, podcasts flop and fail all the time. And considering all the hurdles you've had with Camera Shake, I can't remember any other episodes being late. You've hit every other one, as far as I know. So you've done really well.
This is episode 181, and out of that, there's probably been a handful of episodes that were either a day late. Maybe there was one that we skipped when we were in Lofoten last time, because we thought it'd be actually really cool to have everyone on the show, all the participants, and we had an episode where we all talked about our experiences there. That's I believe it's episode 170, if I'm not mistaken. It's either 170 or 171 from the top of my head. If you want to go and check that, that's super interesting. That was really amazing. We had David Bergman on the show. We had all the other participants of that workshop on the show. Our models were on the show, and we were actually in Lofoten at the time. And if you look very closely, then you can see a little bit of this type of accommodation that we were in. So, that's if you're interested, that's a really good episode to go and check out if you want to get some background information about what's happening on that workshop. Cool. So now I'm sure we're going to talk Northern Lights again at some point in this episode, because that's it kind of comes into what we're actually going to talk about, which is content creation. Now, if you've been living under a rock, then that's probably the only way that you would have missed the fact that both Dave and I have been creating video content for Platypod on the Platypod YouTube channel over the last, 4 months? Is it? Has it been that long?
Yeah, it's been since I got here. July, August, September, 5 months.
Yeah, 5 months. And of course, we've been creating educational photography video content for the channel.
Educational, inspirational, I don't know, we'll call it what you like. It's amazing.
It's definitely educational, yeah, that's for sure. So every month we pick, both Dave and I will create a video, and we pick a topic and we create a video around that. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about what that process looks like, what the trials and tribulations of making that sort of content, and actually why we're making it. So let's just start with that. Why, in the first place, are we creating that video content?
Well, Larry, Dr. Tiefenbrunn, the founder, CEO, inventor of Platypod, is extremely innovative, and he's, in terms of marketing and promotion and stuff like that, he's extremely savvy, and he saw this opportunity with video content. Obviously, we all know that video is king, and all the main social media platforms are demonstrating that it's all about video. And so he realized that we need to, or Platypod needs to stay with, that trend and create a lot of content. But what should you do if you're a tripod company, essentially the camera gear company? Should you be making marketing videos, or should you be showing people educational stuff and inspirational stuff that shows the best way that you can use your Platypod? So as well as us, it's inspiration from other photographers being interviewed for Platypod Perspectives by Larry Becker. And when the opportunity comes up to show some Platypod gear and how it's used and why it's so good, then we'll go for it. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is to inspire people to get out there and shoot, try some personal projects, pick up the camera and look at it in a different way, find a new subject, all this stuff to inspire people to try new things to enhance and level up their photography game. And so from that perspective, it's very smart. And it's fun for us as well, because we're kind of all-rounders, both of us. You're obviously, my specialist sort of thing is landscapes and astro, Yours is portraits, headshots, people. But we still both have knowledge and experience of other genres of photography. So it means that we get to share our skills, but also to take on the personal projects ourselves and share our experiences. So I'm loving it. It's really cool. It's great fun.
It's super fun. And actually, before I respond to that, it's just come to me. The episode I was referring to earlier, where we're all talking about the Lofoten workshop, that was episode 172, not 170 or 71, as I mentioned earlier. So 172, check that out. I put a link up there. Go and check that out. It's super awesome, super interesting. But okay, talking videos. The thing. So for me, when I can't remember whether Larry asked me or whether you asked me to create, to come in and create videos. For me, it was an absolute no-brainer because, as you know, I love a personal project. Because the thing for me immediately was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to come up with topics to create a video about that. I mean, either I know a lot about, or maybe I don't know a lot about. Then it requires me to do the research and to dive into that. And what happens in the process is I learn about that particular subject myself, and then I can communicate that to the audience. And so that's really the enticing thing for me, is the fact that actually it gives me an opportunity to better my skill sets. And, as you mentioned before, the fact that we're using Platypod gear to do that is, in a sense, it's neither here nor there, because, the reason I love Platypod gear is because I actually use it all the time. I use it all the time, to grip things, to hold things, to, whatever, to put my camera on, to hold up lights, to whatever. I mean, it's, I just use it for so many different things. At the moment, I built a little contraption for my wife so that she can have a stable platform for her phone whilst she's recovering. So, because she loves to watch the snooker. I don't know what's up with that, but yeah. So she's recovering at the moment, and she's watching the snooker in bed. She's got her phone, and balancing the phone on the bed is not easy. And so I, immediately thought, well, I've got all the tools. Let's just build something that works perfectly for that, and it works. So great. But that's the thing. It's these tools are really innovative, and they work so well that I actually end up using them all the time. So when I create a video on any given month, then clearly I'll point out how I got to put this particular shot together, and there will inevitably be some form of Platypod toolage involved in that.
Yeah. But the amazing thing, like you were saying, is that their products are so versatile. So Larry specifically designs in extra things, and you think, maybe why do I need 4, quarter 20 threads? What am I going to do with that? But people find ways to attach all kinds of things, like you were saying. So, I mean, they're incredibly versatile. They don't just do the thing they're designed to do. They do a little bit more. And with the combinations of the goosenecks and the new grip, the phone grip, that's cool. But even that's got threads in it, and cold shoe adapter, Arcus with everything. It's perfect. Everything works together. And so, look at Don Komarechka and his macro photography rig that he built. It's all Platypod stuff, and it holds his camera, his lights, he's using cards, he's using all sorts of stuff. And it's all Platypod. It's incredible. So it's incredibly versatile gear, and lots of people look at the Platypod, don't quite understand what it is, and so it's important to sort of break that barrier down and show this is how versatile it is. My primary argument is always going to be the tripod police. Whenever you go to a museum or a gallery or a church or any kind of public building or anything like that, there's always a no tripods rule. And the second you get the tripod out and that leg touches the floor, some security guard's going to appear out of nowhere. And the tripod police are there. Put the tripod away. You can't use a tripod. And it's these kind of places that are too dark where you do need a tripod. Or, you need to do a slightly longer exposure. that don't allow the tripods. But you get a platypod out and you set it on the ground or on a chair or on a ledge or whatever to take your photo. So you get that extra light, that slightly longer exposure to get the perfect photo, but perhaps using a higher aperture indoors or something. And they look at it, and something in their brain, these tripod police officers, something in their brain doesn't engage because they look at it. It's not a tripod. Okay. And then they move on with their life. So, yeah, like you never get challenged when you're using a platypod instead of a tripod at these places where tripods aren't allowed. That's always been my primary argument for why you need a platypod.
Well, see, I'd love to be challenged on things. Like I remember having a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about the panel pros, the little LED panels, and
the Link.
the Luku panel pros, and and I remember somebody saying like, oh well, but you can't shoot portraits with that, and that's never going to work, or headshots. Well, and I thought,
challenge accepted.
Or can I? So, and the thing is that immediately the advantage becomes really clear, because once you've worked out it's absolutely possible, and actually you can get some really high quality, high level results with that. The advantage immediately turns into, wait, now I can put my whole studio in my backpack. That's how versatile that becomes all of a sudden. And then of course for me, it's those of our listeners or viewers who've seen some of those videos will know by now, I love to travel on a Vespa. So if I can fit my whole studio in my backpack, I can sling that on my back, jump on the scooter, and off I go. Brilliant. The amount of money I save in parking charges in London, unbelievable. So that's the other thing for me. It's the challenge of like figuring out, how you can do things that, whereas usually people might have a preconceived idea of what's possible and what's not possible. How can you break those barriers and actually create stuff that will sort of blow your mind, or something that you just hadn't thought of before, and then immediately these tools become useful to you as a photographer. That's the thing. Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps.
It's all about sharing and learning and developing as well. Like, I don't have secrets in photography. There are some photographers out there who are like have secrets and they're not willing to share their methods, their techniques, whatever. But if you ask me a question, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell you the answer, and I don't care if it's like, I don't feel like you're going to steal my shot, steal my idea, anything like that. I want everyone to learn. I'm all about collaboration rather than competition. And so when I get an idea, or when I see an idea of a way that somebody is using Platypod, I feel it's important to show it, to come up with new ideas and come up with new methods, techniques, and things that are going to inspire people. Maybe they're going to, if I share something, maybe someone's going to copy it, or maybe they're going to take it as the foundation to something else. I don't know. But I think it's really important that we work together. It's a small community of photographers. And as you know, any creative in any area of the creative field, whether it's artists or, songwriters or whatever, we should be collaborating rather than competing with each other. We should be sharing experiences and sharing techniques, because it's hard enough trying to set up a business and run a business in the creative field with everyone, especially with everyone wanting to pay with exposure. I'll tag you on Instagram, if you do this for free, all that stuff. Yeah. It's hard enough with that we shouldn't then be making it more difficult for each other. Like, I always use the example of wedding photographers to show that we're not competing. Like, so let's say, Kay, that I'm a wedding photographer and you're a wedding photographer, and I know I've got a secret way to use a strobe, and I'm keeping it a secret from you because I don't want you to steal it, and you're my competition. Actually, you're not my competition, because we're both going to be at different price points, have different styles, different abilities, different geographical markets. There's so many things that show that we're not in direct competition, rather than the fact that we are, that we should be sharing. If I know a secret way to use a strobe, I should tell you, because you might use it exactly the way I show you, or you might adapt it to your own style. But in both cases, we both grow as photographers. And so, yeah, with Platypod, it's important that we share skills and techniques, that we show people how to use the gear. Even if we do an episode where we use one piece of Platypod gear one time and the rest of it's all about a whole load of other stuff, we're inspiring photographers. And I love that.
And that's the thing. I think, very often it's, of course we use those tools because we can. That's one part. But I think the gist of those, of a lot of those videos is from an educational point. It's not necessarily that you necessarily absolutely need to own this equipment. It's not about that. It's about how you light something, or how you do a particular thing. Ultimately,
make it so it's not a sales pitch.
Yeah, and it's obviously, I mean, it's those videos are on the Platypod YouTube channel, so clearly they're going to be using Platypod gear, and why wouldn't they? But actually, the educational part of that is like, okay, how do you light headshots? How do you photograph the Northern Lights? Like, how do you? Yeah. You did an episode about wildlife. Yeah, exactly. So, so there are like lots of different elements in there that are very valuable. And if you already own another type of LED panel that allows you to do a similar thing, well, use that. Why wouldn't you? 100%. But the tripod thing. There's two things actually. The tripod thing is. Sometimes new tools come along that just make your life a lot easier. And basically, although you could use tripods or whatever, right, it would also mean that you have to carry more gear with you. It's heavier. They have a much larger footprint. They get in the way. It's impractical. Blah blah. So if you can come up with a stable platform like a Platypod Extreme, for example, that you could just slip in the front pocket of your backpack, or hook it onto your backpack, whatever, and it weighs almost next to nothing. And it basically doesn't get into anybody's way, and it just makes your life easier and more comfortable, then that's great. That's totally worth it, right? If you insist on carrying a massive tripod around with you anyhow, then also fine, whatever. But basically, that tool has a very particular purpose, and that's essentially just to make your life easier and to allow you to do things more efficiently or more quickly. And on top of that, to give you new opportunities to maybe get your camera into places and spaces that you wouldn't have been able to do previously. So it will just increase your creative potential, for that. So that's the thing. The thing about wedding photography, actually, my argument with that is essentially, as photographers generally, we're already competing with a whole lot of different things, like, cell phones being one, AI being the other. It's not like it was in the 80s where if you wanted to have a decent photograph, well, you had to have somebody with a camera who knew what they were doing. It's not quite like that anymore. Nowadays, you could argue, well, why would somebody spend thousands of dollars or pounds to hire a wedding photographer for their wedding when, like, everybody's got an iPhone, and actually they can create really decent pictures as well. So that's not, so you can, as a professional, you're going to have to, you're going to have to put yourself above that to some point. You're going to have to create something that is not that easily achievable with just an iPhone. And I'm not saying you can't shoot a wedding with an iPhone, because I'm convinced that you can. In fact, I remember talking to Jerry Gionis on the show, a few months ago, and he once shot a wedding on a Polaroid. So clearly that's possible. I'm not saying it isn't, but but if there's anything that can sort of put you above, cut above the rest as a professional, then that is the reason why somebody would potentially hire a wedding photographer. And if we all gave up on that, then there wouldn't be a wedding photography industry anymore. So it just makes sense to elevate everyone together, and for us all to elevate together so that we can all rise above.
And it's the tools and the techniques that help you do that.
Yes, the tools, the techniques, and the knowledge. That's always the thing, and that's why knowledge sharing is so important. And for what we're doing with Platypod, for example, the thing that really interests me actually is exactly that. It's that conveyance of knowledge. Where we're teaching people how to do a particular thing, and actually doing it in a way that makes it achievable. Where you think like, well, because you know what it's like. People often put obstacles or hurdles into their own way, where they kind of go, well, I would love to be able to do this, but I can't because I don't have this or that or the other thing.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, actually, you don't need this or that or the other thing. Here's a way that you can do that, and you can achieve really, really good results.
Yeah.
If you just did it like that. And that's the knowledge part.
We want to share those methods, and we want to show people that these things are achievable. You don't need the best of everything. You just need to know what you're doing with what you've got. And it's quite often spending loads and loads of money on a new lens is great. It's going to help you. Let's not try and hide that fact. But it's also the smaller things, the more affordable things that make the smaller differences. Sorry, like the small effects that make the big differences. Having like the Platypod tripod police stuff is one thing, but then like real estate photography, the last video I did, real estate photography, you can get some incredible angles by sticking a Platypod in the corner room where a tripod's just not going to go.
Yeah, your sauna shot, for example, is a really good example where you placed your camera on the bench in that little sauna. And I know how small that sauna is because I was literally in that room. So that is a shot it's not impossible to get by other means, but it's definitely a lot harder, and it will take a lot longer. And we can see you in the video just placing a camera, and within seconds the thing was done, and that's amazing.
Yeah. I've been standing behind Platypod for a long time, and there's good reason. And they're not competing with tripods. That's another great thing. They don't want to, or they're not trying to compete with tripods. They have a unique product, so unique and so good that people keep trying to copy it. There are lots of patents and things in the way, but it's an incredible product that does its own thing. It makes things possible that weren't possible before. And there's always a time and a place for a tripod, but there's also a time and a place for a Platypod. So I love to show the different things that I've learned about how to use it in the years that I've had them. And it's great as well to both be on the pro team to
absolutely
get early access to all the products and test things and give our feedback and have a little bit of input into the way things are made and what photographers are looking for.
Absolutely. It's the thing that really that I find so extremely useful is the fact that it's a system. You can I can basically build just about anything. It's a bit like what's that called? Do you remember Lego? Was it called Lego Technics or something like that? Do you remember that thing where you could basically build anything out of like a bunch of Meccano? That's what it was.
Meccano, same thing.
Yeah, so you can build just about anything. That's kind of, to me, that's what the Platypod system is. It's like, I need a particular thing to hold up another thing, or to place a microphone, or I use this stuff for everything. I played a gig not too long ago where I needed a mic riser to mic up my guitar amp, basically. And I thought, well, I can use a mic stand, but it's large and it's cumbersome and it just takes up way too much space. And what that means is that I have less space to move, because these days I don't play particularly large stages anymore. It's tiny. So the thing was, okay, so how how can I get that mic in front of the amp without it dangling off the top, which is a very stupid way of doing things. So, immediately it was like, okay, well, I've got a platypod and a handle, like put a mic on top of that, no problemo. Because everything is standardized. Like all the threads are standardized, the sizes are standardized. It works with absolutely everything. So I've used that to hold lights. In fact, you can't see that on this camera angle, but there's a light just above me right here, or just behind and above me. That's it's a Panel Pro, it's a gooseneck, and a Platypod Ultra, and that's clamped to my shelf. And it's a perfect headlight because it reaches over, it can move it around, I can angle it in any way I want. And it's, it works great. So really, it's super useful. Now, I want to talk about the process of creating those videos, because making content like that is extremely useful, not only for a company like Platypod. Of course, we understand why they're doing it, because it helps, it helps the marketing of things. But anybody who maybe has a YouTube channel or is thinking about starting, to create content, especially video content for, any kind of social media platform, whether it's, Instagram or YouTube, or TikTok, or let it be Threads. If anybody's is anybody still doing Threads?
No, they tried so hard, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive for like a day or two, and then it just went, what's happening? Yeah. But
I saw people that went all in on Threads as well. Immediately, they were all in. It was constant posting and whatever. And now, silence. Like, I have, just to explain how stupid I think it is. I have something like 20,000 followers on Threads.
Okay, cool. I have about 8.
I posted one post. Just like, let's see how this goes or something. How have I got 20,000 followers from one post? It's like, it's just bizarre to me. It doesn't seem like there's any value to it. And obviously they were trying to take on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call that thing. But I've also gone off that one quite a lot.
The only reason I use, use X or Twitter is mainly because there's some people that I communicate with that are using that as their main platform, and those are basically the people I communicate with.
Right. Okay.
And that's it.
Yeah, I've even I had that reason, and I've now given up on that reason. What I am doing more is a lot of TikTok, and I've got to the point now where I'm a TikTok creator, and so TikTok are paying me, and that's cool because I'm seeing growth and I'm seeing feedback and engagement and everything. It's directly converting to people going onto my website or people booking tours with me and things like that. But I'm getting actual hard cash money from TikTok themselves just for posting. I like that because we know that Instagram, Meta are making a metric ton of cash from all the algorithm-driven ads that we're being shown. But TikTok are sharing that cash with the people that are creating, the people that are building the platform, which is, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, but TikTok is one of these things. It's one of these things where I can see how it's super addictive, and I don't know. At the moment I'm taking a little bit of a break from the likes of Instagram and TikTok in terms of content creation, but that's just because I'm so focusing a little bit more on YouTube. That's basically it. And but let's talk about the actual process of creating a video for, let's say, for YouTube, for example. If we're talking about Platypod videos, what's your process? Like, what process do you go through in order to create a video for YouTube?
With my own channel before, when I was doing my vlogging, it's very different to the way I'm doing it with Platypod. So my own channel, I was seeing some growth, not huge, with the vlogging style, but I noticed that because there was no, my episodes were too long. Sometimes, like, they went down different paths. There was no clear structure, no clear story, because it's a vlog, because, you know, anything could happen. That was what was holding back the growth that there could have been if I'd focused more time and energy on it, to give it that structure, so people had an idea of what to expect from each episode, and so that there was a set time that wasn't too long, all this sort of stuff. So with Platypod, I've taken all those mistakes that I made. I'm not calling them mistakes, actually, because I never did my own channel to try and make a business of it. I just did it for fun, to document my travel. But yeah, with Platypod, I've taken the knowledge that I've got from that to really figure out, okay, so it needs to be 5 to 10 minutes. There needs to be a clear structure. You need to be engaging from the very beginning, from the very first moment. No intros, just boom, straight into it. To keep myself on track, I will make an outline and sometimes a script. And there has to be, every episode, there has to be that golden piece of information that Larry Becker calls it the aha moment, where you go, that's a really good information. I'll take that. And so putting together an episode is like storyboarding and scripting, and you have to have clear objectives. You have to have more B-roll than you think you need. And the process is fun. And to be honest, it's not a difficult or long process. It just requires some creative thinking.
Well, I think it's not a difficult and long process because there's the pre-production, the planning that's gone into it. Because otherwise, it can very quickly become a very long, long-winded process. That's always the thing. Yeah. I think I have a similar experience in the sense that, I spent quite a lot of time in pre-production planning everything out, because then actually the production part, the shooting part, is greatly diminished because of that. Yeah,
as soon as you start talking and you know what you're going to say, it just flies by and it's done.
Yeah, and plus, it's like just to organize, the whole sort of rundown of that video. It's vital to work with a script, for example.
Funny.
And for me, it starts, like you mentioned, it starts with the original outline. I mean, it starts with the idea. Yeah. And then often, it can work two ways, basically. Sometimes it starts with the idea and I know how I'm going to do something, and then I can basically break it down into different, almost like chapters in a book, and I can break it down like that. And then sometimes it's more of a thing like, okay, well, I'll do the shoot and I'll shoot the thing that I want to shoot. And in putting the shoot together, I then realize, okay, well, this is a step, that's a step, that's a step. And then these steps then become the chapters, and then that becomes the script. But I would have already done the shoot at that point, and so I would have already created the actual image that I'm going to talk about, for example. And then in writing the script, and the thing is, like, for me, I've gotten to the point where I really like actually scripting the dialogue, mainly because the last step in the pre-production process for me is I go through the entire script, and I'll then put together a secondary B-roll list. And I can then, because then what happens is when it actually comes to shooting day, I'll shoot the A-roll first, and then I'll have a definitive list of all the B-roll bits that I need, and I literally just have to do one thing, tick that off, another thing, tick it off, another thing, tick it off. And then when it comes to editing, I'm very, very, very rarely in a situation where I'm putting stuff together and I'm thinking, oh, but I need another shot for this thing. Because that's always the problem. If you don't think about the B-roll way in advance, you always end up in the editing chair and you go like, wouldn't it be good if I had something? Because I'm talking about this one thing. Wouldn't it be good if I had a B-roll shot that actually demonstrates what I'm just talking about at that point? And so and then you go back, you have to set something up again, you have to reshoot that thing, and it just adds to the time. Before you know it, you spend days putting it together.
Yeah. With the scripting, I find that if I'm talking off the cuff, it's easy to do the start and the middle bit of the talking, but finishing the talking, particularly finishing the episode, it really does help to have a script, because otherwise there's hesitation and uncertainty and silent moments and things like that. And like the bit where you're going, here's what we just learned, and like and subscribe and join us next week. That transition between those two is far easier with a script. It's more sort of confident and purposeful than if you're...
And you can make sure that you're not forgetting
thinking, have I said what I need to say?
Yeah.
Can I finish now? That sort of stuff,
Yeah, and as you get used to, basically speaking from a script, or let's say if you're reading from a teleprompter, it takes a little while to get used to that, and to kind of sound natural, or as natural as you possibly can. I use a teleprompter for a lot of things, and I'll occasionally deviate from exactly what's written on the teleprompter. That being said, because it recognizes your voice and it scrolls, it's a voice-activated scrolling mechanism, basically. You're going to have to come back in so that it actually realizes that it needs to scroll on to the next bit. So you can deviate, but you can't deviate too much.
I'll tell you what, if anyone's wondering how we do it, we both use the same gear, and it's right here.
That's the one, yeah?
So it's a glide gear. The camera sits at the back and looks through this little hole. And then on the front side, there's a piece of glass. You put your iPad here. So there's an app that listens to your voice and scrolls as you talk. And you see in the glass, just like on the TV, on the news or whatever, when they're reading from an auto cue or a teleprompter, we're essentially just using one of them just to make our lives easier.
Exactly. And so, you can make sure that you're to the point, you're not waffling on. And as you can probably tell, even with this podcast, I freely admit, I write the intro and the outro, they're scripted. So I can I know, right? Now I'm that good. One take wonder. Nope. But then, of course, everything in between is just waffle. I call it waffle. It's just joke off the cuff.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. Yeah, exactly. You can't really script that. But when when you make videos that are short and concise, like you said, 5 to 10 minutes maximum, you're going to have to get a lot of information, and potentially, depending on what you're talking about, what the subject matter is, there might be a lot of information that needs to be crammed into that relatively short space of time. And you've got to show everything, and you've got to create the end product, and you've got all the information, the like and subscribe, and all that kind of the technical stuff that needs to go into it as well. That to cram all of these different elements into 5 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes, it means that you just can't have long gaps in your talking. You can't waffle. You have to be straight to the point. You have to be concise. You got to make sure that you don't leave out.
Feel like they're getting a lot of value in a short space of time.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's, I find it, for me, it means that I have to sit down beforehand during the pre-production process, and I have to spend more time writing a script. Yes, I spent a couple of hours on a script or something. But what it actually does is it saves me tons and tons of time during the production process, as in when I'm recording it and I don't have to go over something again because I realized I forgot something. I don't have to just sit there and think like, oh, did I forget that? Or did I mention it? Then you have to rewatch it.
Yeah.
And all of that takes massive amounts of time.
Like on the pickup points and everything. If you say something wrong, you have to try and think about the edit and think, well, where can I cut this? Where should I start talking from again?
Yeah.
You sometimes forget things or say things twice.
Yeah.
Having a script means don't do that.
Exactly. Repetition is a big one because, the minute you start repeating yourself, you're just wasting time, and that's, and it all adds up. But it could make the difference between a video that's 4 minutes long or something that's 12 minutes long. It's just, And then, of course, the editing in the end, the post-production, it's with the script. I literally edit to the script because I've got the script, I've got my B-roll shot list. I know exactly where everything's going to go. I like to put in little fun bits, like little, little, what do you call it?
Memes. You stick in memes and short clips and things.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I know where they're going to go because they're part of the script. And so there's no, like, you don't sit there in the middle of your edit and think, I wonder where I can put that in. It's not like that. It's like, well, this goes there, and then I'm saying this bit, and then this goes, and then there's this B-roll shot. And so the whole structure is there already. And it then means that it saves you massive amounts of time when you're editing the whole thing. And that's how you can then create that kind of content as efficiently as possible. That's
what editing software do you use?
So I edit everything in Final Cut Pro. That's I'm used to it. I've used it for years and years. I've used it for 12 years, I would say.
Yeah.
I used to use Premiere Pro for a long time before that, probably for about 10 years before that. But I switched to Final Cut probably when I switched to Mac, actually. Yeah, so probably 12 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And, I think, I mean, personally, I think each editing software, whether it's Final Cut Pro, whether it's Premiere, whether it's Final Cut or Premiere Pro, whatever it may be, they all have advantages and disadvantages. And of course, it depends on what it is that you're doing, and also how you like to work. It's just like editing a photograph. Your methodology, the tools that you use will basically be a result of or consequence of the method that you prefer. And that's a personal thing.
Okay.
I know people who swear by using Premiere Pro, and I've used Premiere Pro for a long time. I liked it. It was perfectly fine. At the time when I switched to Mac, Final Cut just worked a little bit more smoothly. And actually, I was just curious. I just wanted to see what it was like, just to see. And the way that Final Cut handles the timeline, although I know a lot of people complained about it at the time, but I saw an advantage in that for the way that I edit. And so actually for me personally, again, that was an advantage to have this floating timeline type of thing. And so that was the other elements that, you can say like, well, Premiere Pro handles that better, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah.
Premiere Pro crashes too much.
And that's, and to be honest with you, I mean, that was actually initially, that was the reason why I looked around for other things, at the time, again, like 12 years ago. So I just thought, okay, what else is out there? What is this Final Cut? I think I started Final Cut before it was called Final Cut Pro, or before it was called Final Cut Pro X, or sorry, whatever. It looked very different back then. But it's whatever floats your boat. I know people who run a YouTube channel and they create videos week on week and week and edit everything on their phone.
Yeah.
Or an iPad. I mean, if that floats your boat, great. Whatever helps you to realize what's in your head.
What's his name? Benjamin something. Bald and Bankrupt on YouTube. He's got millions and millions of followers. He travels around, a British guy who travels around, speaks Russian. He got arrested at Baikonur. He was in the news for that guy. It's a Sony vlogging camera, like an action camera, edited on his phone. And he's got millions of followers, huge engagement, and virtually no effort in the edit. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, it depends on the type of content that you do. If you're, like, for instance, if you're creating content for TikTok, do you have to edit everything in an editor like Final Cut? No, you definitely don't,
No. It depends if you want the colors. And if you want
it really,
want the right, frame rate, megabits per second, bit rate, that's what I want. And the right size so it doesn't get compressed.
Yeah, I mean,
other than that.
And there's apps, there's apps that allow you to do things and put stuff together, for TikTok. And you can use templates and all the rest of it. That makes it, like I spend I spent a whole day the other day creating a vertical video for another purpose, where I spent a whole day animating lots of different graphics in it. You can use a template that does things that look amazing in a split second. You don't necessarily have to do that, but so the different horses for different courses. For me personally, when I put a video like the videos that we create for Platypus together, I look at it more like a film edit, as in like a landscape traditional video stroke film edit. And so to me, in my head, that just works the best. And so I get the result that I want to get more easily that way. And then of course it comes, the audio comes into it, because that's another thing. It's not only, creating the visual content, but it's also creating the audio content, because there might be music, there might be obviously just the voice, and then there might be, Foley sounds, there might be special effects. All of that kind of stuff has to get mixed in, come out together, and all the rest of it. And
Cool.
I just like doing all of that in Final Cut, because the process is an easy one. But what do you use?
Premiere.
Cool.
I don't know. I'm used to it, I guess. I haven't really been properly editing video for a very long time. But I started with Premiere, and so that's the system I know and understand. And of course, I've noticed that there are positive reasons to use other programs like DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut, but at the moment I'm fine with Premiere, so there's no reason not to use it.
Premiere is fantastic. Premiere actually has, as always, Premiere will have certain advantages over Final Cut, and likewise Final Cut will have certain advantages over Premiere. The one thing I love about Premiere Pro, is the fact that you can do text-based editing. That's a real game changer. That's a functionality that's not yet available in Final Cut. So, if it was for that single thing, you could does it make sense to switch to Premiere, for example, or to DaVinci? But the reality is, there's like one feature isn't going to make you switch. It has to be much more substantial than that.
It's the same as the Canon, Nikon, Sony argument. Once you have a system, it's going to take a lot to change to another system. It's like you're investing in a system of cameras and lenses. It's the same thing. You're learning a system of editing. You're learning a method that goes with a particular software. To switch to another one takes a lot of effort.
And of course, you invest into plugins, particularly, and then these plugins may not necessarily work on a different, and so on and so forth. So it's there's stuff it's like camera bodies and lenses, It's once you're in a particular, once you're down the Nikon road and you've invested money into Nikon glass and bodies, and it's not as easy, to switch, because now you're going to have to replace not only the camera body, but you also have to replace all your glass and all the rest of it. So that's it's a similar thing. But I think, the reality is, if you find an editor that works for you and the way that you think when you're getting into the edit, then that's, there's the good reasons to stick with that. I know a lot of people switch to DaVinci, over the last few years, and there are good reasons for that. But I think the difference between DaVinci and Premiere and Final Cut has, that distance isn't as large as it maybe was a couple of years ago. I think the field isn't quite as wide anymore. So another major reason why I decided to switch from Premiere originally to Final Cut. I mean, on one hand, of course, as I mentioned before, it was the way the timeline's handled. But the other thing was really how much time it took in Premiere to ultimately render out the final file. And of course, I'm talking 10, 12 years ago. Well, at least 12 years ago. On my machine, I remember editing a video that was maybe 7 minutes long. And I remember setting that computer to render in the evening, and by the morning, that file would have just finished rendering. And that just seemed absolutely ridiculous, And then when I started using Final Cut, I realized how fast Final Cut was rendering. It took minutes rather than hours, And one of the reasons for that was because even back then, Final Cut would use some processing power to render things in the background. So whilst you're editing and you take your hands off the mouse for a few seconds, it would actually start rendering some bits in the background. And so the rendering was going on basically whilst you were doing the edit, rather than, I think what Premiere Pro did at that time was like, okay, you do the whole edit, then you click render, then it starts the rendering process. So a lot of the effort that it took, the computer to render the thing out would have already taken place by the time you got to the end of your edit, and that was a real advantage. And if I think now, for instance, the situation I'm in now, where I'm creating content for YouTube, which I didn't do 12 years ago. Now, a lot of the time, you're pressed for time. You get the thing ready, you need to render it out because you got to either send it off to a client or it needs to go up in time, onto YouTube channel or whatever else. And it's
or you're posting this video today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm going to have to get this done. Well, that's what I endeavor to do. That's the thing. But it'll be first thing tomorrow morning or at some point tonight. But so you can't wait. You just can't take 4 or 6 hours to render this thing out, And these videos now, if you think about it, we're talking about this podcast episode. The audio version of that's not going to take that much time. It's going to take a couple of minutes and that's rendered out and that's done. The video version will take considerably longer, but we're talking about a video that's going to be over an hour long, most likely.
Yeah.
And so that will take a good, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or something, 20 minutes to render out, maybe something like that, and then it's done. So still not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things. So that was, that was a real eye-opener at the time that sort of made me stick with Final Cut. There were some drawbacks, of course. Back in the day, I really I really liked the way that I could work with Premiere Pro and then seamlessly switch to After Effects and do something in After Effects and then come back to Premiere. I really loved that. Of course, you don't really have that in Final Cut. Apple do a thing called Apple Motion, which has a similar functionality to After Effects. It's not by far not as extensive or as good. Okay, but I'll be honest, I've used Apple Motion maybe once or twice. Final Cut has more functionalities when it comes to plugins and stuff like that already built in. So not necessarily, But anyway, so yeah, that's the way I approach it. It's there are many options out there. There are free options out there. There's a really powerful free version of DaVinci out there. That is incredible. For anybody who wants to get into that kind of editing, I highly recommend go over to DaVinci. Try it out. If you like it, fantastic. You can probably do 90% of what you ever need to do with the free version. And if you got to the point where you really need that extra functionality, then probably I would say paying for it is probably worth it at that point.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you are an Adobe subscriber already and you're already subscribed to the Creative Cloud, then you might as well use Premiere Pro because it's already there. No extra cost. There are tons and tons and tons of videos on YouTube that will teach you how to do any and every aspect of any of those editors. Super easy. So let's talk about this sort of creative conception of putting these videos together for YouTube, or in our case for Platypod, for example, or if you use if you're running your own YouTube channel, or you're thinking of setting up your own YouTube channel. How do you come up with ideas for your videos?
Oh, that's easy. You should look at what people are creating and see what they're interested in, and then see if I know a way that can help them. So I created the Platypod users group on Facebook, and that's a great source of inspiration. There are some very clear and obvious trends, like lots of people are shooting waterfalls and long exposures and things like that. Lots of people are shooting macro. and things like toys, flowers, and just looking around and seeing the way that people are using platypods, and brainstorming around those ideas to see, firstly, do I know already of a way that would help other people to implement these ideas better? Or secondly, can I find a way that I can share to help people get the most out of their gear? And like I said before, it's not just about how to use your platypod. It's more about how to be a photographer. It's not the whole channel is not a sales pitch. Obviously, it's platypod, but it's not a sales pitch. It's education and inspiration. And so yeah, it's like it's essentially trying to find something that looks good or a technique that's easily achievable or adaptable that everyone can learn from and can take inspiration from. Yeah, it's fun doing the research and trying to figure out what people want to see and what people are shooting to try and help. If there's a way I can help, I'll do that.
It's always a great way of, like I said earlier, it's a great way of actually expanding your own knowledge.
Yeah.
As well at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. Personal projects are absolute winners in photography. There's always going to be something. If you're in one genre of photography and you skip over to a different for a personal project, there's always going to be something you can learn that you can take back into your genre. It's going to benefit you and enhance your photography. And so, like, if you're a landscape photographer, go and shoot some portraits. There's going to be something that you learn from it. Even if you just learn that you don't like it, there's going to be something that you can learn from it that you can translate into your own field. That's going to benefit you, but it also gives you some sort of insights and understanding. Personal projects are absolute winners every time.
Yeah, it's huge. It really makes you a better photographer all around. And even if you're specializing in a particular field, just taking that step outside can do wonders. There's sort of a feedback that happens, where all of a sudden you look at things in a different way. That might be just because maybe you're an available light photographer and now you're just pushing yourself to use artificial light. But it will mean that even in the future, you look at light differently, and so on and so forth. So it's got massive advantages. There's an episode a few weeks ago that I did where I talked about motivation and what happens when we feel our own motivation dwindle away, and how can you motivate yourself to get back in the ring, and to get back into it and back at it, basically. And using personal projects for that reason is brilliant, because it just forces you to do something different, and it almost like it just reprograms your brain cells to think slightly differently about something that you may have been doing for years.
Yeah. It's some people think it's hard to get out of a hole. You can get stuck in a creative hole and feel like there's no inspiration there. It's easy to get out of it if you just give yourself a little kick, and a personal project is enough of a kick to motivate you to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything huge or big or anything that you necessarily have to put in the public domain, or you don't necessarily have to post about it on Instagram. It doesn't have to be something that's there for everyone to see. It can just be something that's really just personal, something that you just do for your own enjoyment.
Yeah, and obviously when it comes to the bigger names in photography, because it's not a portfolio worthy shot, you're not going to see it. When they do a personal project, when the likes of the big names in photography are doing personal projects, you aren't going to see it, but they're doing it. Trust me, they're doing it. And so, it's a concept that you should take on board, and people should be doing personal projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be in the same field, of what you're used to already, or it can be in a completely different field. So, I mean, it could be like, let's say, for instance, let's say you're a headshot photographer and you shoot with strobes, and you just want to basically see if you can, how you can utilize constant light, for example. It's a complete different thing. Now, you don't use that for the first time when the next client is in your studio. Well, you wouldn't do that, obviously, because that could be disastrous. You don't have to do that. You could do that with like a fake head if you wanted to, right? Easy. It just gives you something to work on, something to, improve your skill set on, something to increase your knowledge base on, and so on and so forth. But it could also be something completely different. Like, again, if you're a headshot photographer, why not try wildlife photography or macro photography?
Yeah.
Or car photography or whatever it may be. Yeah. There's always something
There's going to be translatable skills that you can take back to improve your own photography.
Yeah, that's why I found the pandemic quite useful in that respect, because certainly for myself, it really did force me to do things differently, obviously, because I couldn't do the things that I was doing before. But it also got me to do different things. Yeah. As in like when we were locked down, for instance, over here, I had to shoot some products because, I had companies that approached me to shoot their products. It was a thing that I could actually do during the pandemic. And I didn't. So I had to work out how to shoot white shampoo bars on a white background. Like, how the hell is that ever gonna? That was a challenge. It was a challenge, but it was fun. Not really sure the results were any good, but I did it anyway. What could you say?
Sounds exciting.
Well, and of course, then new ideas come out of situations like that. This podcast, as we've discussed many times on the show, this podcast being a direct result of that. And I think for yourself, the whole idea of traveling in a van, that came about round about the same time, right?
Yeah. Not because of that, but yeah. That happened because I was finding myself, and I wanted to go on a big adventure to help figure everything out. That's a whole big story, but yeah, it was essentially a personal project, but it was one for improving my life rather than improving my photography. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's had both of those effects, though.
Yeah, kind of. It got me to places where I could shoot more, but more importantly, it gave me thinking time.
But also it gave you the opportunity, of course, to start a YouTube channel. And then as a result of that, you had to get into learning how to edit video. And then you had to do that quite extensively. And so you gained a new skill set. So actually all around, you could say that even that, basically meant that you managed to improve yourself when it comes to creating content in general.
Yeah, the video editing was under time constraints. It was kind of high pressure, I guess, because I was putting out an episode every week on a Sunday evening, and so it taught me to edit, but it also taught me to edit fast, high pressure. So yeah, it taught me some new things. It taught me quite a lot, but yeah, I mean, as I say, that wasn't the primary goal. It's a happy consequence, but it wasn't the primary goal.
Yeah, but those are the parts that I quite like. I like the time pressure in a sense because it just forces you to actually go and create. That's why I'm usually quite strict with myself in putting an episode out every Thursday, and I know this won't be a Thursday, but because it basically just forces me to get my ass into gear and to get this stuff going, and to get it done, by a particular point in time. Because it's so easy to just stagnate and then just go, oh yeah, it's a really good idea. As it always is. When you have an idea, you go like, oh yeah, this is awesome, right? Gotta do this. It's the best idea I've ever had, and you've got all the energy and all the drive. And then a week down the road, it's like, well. And then it never actually happens. That's always the thing.
Yeah, it's important to stick to your goals, set the goals and stick to them, but also to make them achievable.
Exactly. And, it's a perfect segue to basically say, if you feel stuck in a rut, listening to this or, watching this on YouTube, and you think like, well, I'm looking for something different to do. If you've been doing the same thing, maybe it's portrait photography, maybe it's wedding photography, maybe it's commercial product photography, whatever it may be. And you think like, I really need to do something that's different, and you're looking for a once in a lifetime opportunity, make sure you check out idavewilliams.com/training, and check out our Lofoten Viking workshop. That will allow you to really to do something that is it's going to be very different from anything and everything that you've ever done before. Photographing the Northern Lights is very, very special. Working with authentic Viking models in those environments, it's going to be different from any model shoot you've ever done. I guarantee you that. And photographing those landscapes, the Arctic landscapes of the Lofoten Islands, is something that you just don't get to do very often, I guess, in your life. So all of these things make this workshop a very, very special, very, very unique experience that will allow you to, improve your skill set. It'll allow you to do something that's really a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it will allow you to create images that you just wouldn't have been able to create in any other way. So head over to iwilliams.com. I can't. Head over to idavewilliams.com/training, or check out all the links in the description of this podcast episode, and take this opportunity. And as we mentioned before, it's a great time to do this because there's an amazing opportunity of getting a full year's free subscription of Adobe's Creative Cloud.
And if you want to see Northern Lights this winter, they are going to be huge. We're seeing the effects of solar maximum already. And so, like tonight, there's going to be enormous Northern Lights. Unfortunately, I've got some clouds, but I think I'm going to be able to escape them. So there should be some big Northern Lights content coming soon as well. But yeah, solar maximum means you're going to see the best Northern Lights that have happened for roughly 28 years, because the last solar maximum was a bit of a flop. And it's an 11-year cycle. So stack 2.5 of those together, that's 28 years. So that's one other thing. But then we've got the reindeer, we've got fantastic company, we've got the history of the culture of Lofoten, beautiful red cabins, the dramatic landscapes, the seascapes, the Viking. It's a no-brainer. This is the best workshop.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is, like you mentioned, it's the best time. I've been, obviously, I've been looking at the images that you've put up on social media over the last, few weeks, and remembering how mind-blowing the Northern Lights were when I was there at the end of September, and then seeing what's been going on since then is just is literally mind-altering, let alone mind-blowing. So this is a perfect time. Anyway, Dave, it's been, as always, it's been also a pleasure having you on the show. And I don't even know, I think I've lost count as to how many times you've been on the show.
More than Tommy Reynolds.
Which clearly is the main thing. Okay, folks, that's all for today. It's been fantastic catching up with Dave again. But before we go, let me just recommend another episode that I think you'll like. Check out episode 172, where we discuss the Viking workshop in greater detail. Or if you're a gear nut and you're wondering what kind of gear we used in the Lofoten Islands, check out episode 173. I'm sure you'll love it. If you enjoy our content, consider supporting us on buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us continue creating and bringing you more exciting episodes. It really does mean the world to us. And for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this podcast, did you know that there's a fully fledged video version over on YouTube with plenty of examples of our guest photography in full Technicolor? All you have to do is go over to YouTube, search for Camerashake Podcast, and you'll be able to watch all past episodes on there. And if you're on YouTube already, well, get in touch and leave a comment. And remember to hit the like button, ring that bell, and share with your friends. You can help us reach a greater audience all over the world. Once again, thank you for listening and watching, and I'll see you again next Thursday. And it will definitely be Thursday. See you next week.